Sometimes the most dangerous man in the UFC isn't the champion. It's the guy who wasn't even supposed to be here. One injury, one phone call, one decision. Now, one of the most feared men on earth is standing across from a fighter with absolutely nothing to lose. And if Magomed Ankalaev slips for even 1 second, we might be witnessing one of the biggest upsets the light heavyweight division has seen in years. Ankalaev versus Guskov. Let's talk about it. Let's get it.
What's going on, everybody? I'm LBanger, and this is Knuckle Game Podcast, where we don't chase headlines, we chase understanding. Today's episode is presented by Juggernaut Provisions, the home of the Knuckle Sandwich, the only snack built for people who love combat sports almost as much as they love a good snack. Now, let's get it. On paper, this looks simple. Magomed Ankalaev, former title challenger, one of the best wrestlers in the UFC, one of the most disciplined fighters in mixed martial arts. But on Saturday, standing across from him, Bogdan Guskov, a man who wasn't even preparing for Magomed Ankalaev a couple of weeks ago. Most fans look at this fight and they laugh, they shrug. They already wrote the results. But here's the thing. History has never cared what fans expected. Matt Serra wasn't supposed to beat George St. Pierre. Michael Bisping wasn't supposed to knock out Luke Rockhold. And Holly Holm wasn't supposed to survive the first round against Ronda Rousey. The UFC has made billions of dollars because impossible things happen surprisingly often. So the real question isn't, can Bogdan Guskov beat Magomed Ankalaev? The real question is, what happens if he does? Because one punch, one mistake, one lapse of concentration can erase 25 minutes of perfect preparation. And that's why this fight matters. Now, who is Magomed Ankalaev? Imagine fighting someone who almost never makes mistakes. Now, imagine trying to beat him. That's Magomed Ankalaev. For years, Ankalaev has quietly become one of the most complete fighters in the UFC. No unnecessary trash talk, no backflips, no social media circus, just calm, cold, calculated violence. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, this dude is he's born in Dagestan, Russia, so we shouldn't be surprised. And this region has become synonymous with world-class wrestling and relentless discipline. The same mountains, the same unforgiving environment, the same culture that helped produce champions like Khabib Nurmagomedov and Islam Makhachev. I'm telling you, man, in Dagestan, them boys don't play, man. These kids don't grow up dreaming about becoming influencers. They grow up wrestling before school, after school, sometimes before the sun even comes up. By the time many of these athletes reach adulthood, pressure don't scare them anymore. Pressure feels more normal. That mentality shows up every time Ankalaev walks into the octagon. He's patient. He doesn't chase knockouts. He doesn't panic when he loses an exchange. He simply waits until opponents give him exactly what he wants. Then he takes over. His professional record tells the story of consistency. He's beaten elite competition, Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, Volkan Ozdemir, Johnny Walker, Alexander Reg, and many others who have spent years near the top of the division. Some critics call him boring. I call him efficient. There's a difference because excitement doesn't only come from wild exchanges. Sometimes watching someone completely dismantle another world-class fighter is like watching a chess master play against a beginner. Every move feels inevitable. Every adjustment feels one step ahead. Ankalaev isn't trying to entertain you every second. He's trying to win. And historically, winning has been exactly what he does. But here's where things get interesting. For perhaps the first time in a long time, the pressure isn't on the underdog. It's on him. Because champions aren't judged by whether they win. They're judged by how they win. And against a late replacement, anything less than dominance raises questions. Questions fans weren't asking a week ago. And that's exactly what makes this fight dangerous. Now, the man standing across from him isn't showing up just to collect a paycheck. No way. He's showing up to steal an entire career's worth of momentum in one night. And that's where the story gets really interesting. The man has nothing to lose. Look, there's one thing more dangerous than a champion. And that's a man who has nothing to lose. Because once fear leaves the building, anything can happen, man. Think about this for a second. 12 days. That's all. That's all Bogdan Guskov had. 12 days to prepare for one of the smartest fighters in the entire UFC. Now, most people would have said, no, thank you. Not Guskov. He said, yes. He said, let's get it. And that tells you almost everything you need to know about that man. Bogdan Guskov was born in Uzbekistan, a country that's quietly becoming one of the toughest producers of combat sports talent in the world. Different language, different culture, same mentality, hard work, discipline, and a willingness to fight anybody. Now, before arriving in the UFC, Guskov built his reputation the old-fashioned way, man, by knocking people out. Not by talking, not by creating controversy, but by making opponents wake up staring at the ceiling. If Ankalaev is a surgeon, Guskov is a wrecking ball. His game isn't built around winning every minute. It's built around changing a fight in 1 second. That's why power is the great equalizer in mixed martial arts. Wouldn't you say so? I mean, you could be losing 4 rounds. You can be getting outclassed. You could be getting tuned up. Then one right hand, one left hook, or one head kick, and suddenly everybody forgets who was winning. That's how it goes. That's how this game is, man. That's why every time a knockout artist walks into the octagon, there's tension. Because violence doesn't care about scorecards. Guskov has already shown flashes of exactly that in the UFC. I mean, he finishes opponents with explosive combinations and brutal power, proving he belongs on this stage. Is he as polished as Ankalaev? No, probably not. Is he as experienced against elite competition? No, not yet. But that's not why people tune in. People tune in because underdogs sometimes write history, and history loves chaos. Look, the mindset of the underdog. Now, here's what makes Guskov dangerous. He's not carrying any expectations. Nobody's saying if Bogdan loses, his legacy is damaged. Nah, ain't nobody saying that. The pressure is completely one-sided. If he loses, most people will just say, well, he took the fight on short notice. Yeah, but if he wins, he instantly becomes one of the biggest stories in the UFC, One night, one upset, one career-changing moment. That's the kind of opportunity fighters dream about. You don't get many chances to skip years climbing the rankings. And this is one of them. So, the most dangerous thing about Guskov, confidence can be manufactured, belief cannot. And Bogdan Guskov fights like a man who genuinely believes he belongs here. You can see it in the way he walks, the way he throws combinations, the way he refuses to back up. He's not intimidated by names. He ain't soft. He's trying to become one. He's trying to become one of those names. And that kind of mindset creates dangerous moments because hesitation loses fights. Belief wins exchanges. And sometimes belief creates miracles. But here's the problem. Belief doesn't stop takedowns. Belief doesn't defend calf kicks. Belief doesn't stop a man who spent his entire career solving puzzles in the octagon. Oh no. To beat Magomed, you need more than courage. You need discipline. You need patience. You need to make almost no mistakes against a fighter as methodical as Ankalaev. And that's asking a lot. But styles make fights, not resumes. I'm going to break down exactly why this matchup is far more dangerous for Ankalaev than most fans realize. Because there's one weapon Bogdan Guskov possesses that can change everything in the blink of an eye. And if Ankalaev can't neutralize it, we could be talking about one of the biggest shocks of the year. But first, let's talk about why Khalil Rountree stepped aside. Why did Khalil Rountree step aside? One injury changed the entire light heavyweight division overnight. And most fans still don't realize how big the ripple effect could become. Let's clear something up right now. Khalil Rountree didn't back out because he was scared. Whoever thinks that is 4 cans short of a 6-pack. Khalil is as tough and is as dangerous as they come. He didn't turn the fight down. He didn't price himself out. He didn't have a contract dispute. According to the UFC, Rountree suffered from an injury during training camp that forced him to withdraw from the main event. That's it. That's the fight game. It's brutal, not just on fight night, but every single day leading up to it. People only see 25 minutes inside the octagon. They don't see the hundreds of rounds sparring, the bruised ribs, the swollen knees, the cracked toes, the shoulders that keep popping out, the stitches from training that never make Instagram. Championship camps are wars before the war. Sometimes your toughest opponent is your own body. For Rountree, that's exactly what happened. And when he's forced out, the UFC had a decision. We could either cancel the card, or we could find someone crazy enough to say yes. And the hitman, Bogdan Guskov, answered the phone like, hello? Sign me up. I got this. That phone call can change a life. Think about how quickly life changes in this sport. 1 minute you're preparing for someone else, the next the UFC calls. Do you want Magomed Ankalaev? You don't get weeks to think about it. You don't gather the family around the dinner table. You either say yes or someone else does. That's why I have so much respect for fighters who accept these opportunities, because they're gambling everything, their ranking, their health, their future, against one of the most dangerous men in the division. That takes confidence. That takes belief. Or insanity. Sometimes all three. Now, records don't fight Rankings don't fight. Styles fight. And that's where this gets really interesting. If you've watched this podcast before, you already know my philosophy. Styles make fights, not hype, not social media followers, not betting odds, styles. So let's break it down. Now, Ankalaev is a system. Every strike has a purpose. Every movement is measured. Every feint gathers information. He's not trying to impress you. He's trying to remove your options. Watch his fights closely. He'll spend the first few minutes downloading data. You don't read, he wants to see how you react to the jab. Do you circle left? Do you overreact to feints? Can you defend body kicks? Can you stop his takedown? He's building a file on you while you're trying to hurt him. Then somewhere around the middle of the fight, the pressure changes. The openings get bigger. Your reactions slow down. And suddenly, everything starts landing. That's not luck. That's elite fight IQ. And Ankalaev has it. Now, Bogdan Guskov, he's the exact opposite. He's not trying to win a slow chess match. He's trying to flip the board and the table over. He's explosive, aggressive, powerful. He throws combinations with bad intentions. When he sees an opening, he doesn't ask permission. He attacks. And that's exciting. But it can also be dangerous because against a patient counter-striker, overcommitting creates opportunities. If Guskov starts chasing knockouts, Ankalaev will make him pay. I believe that. So here's where the fight is won. Now, where this fight is won, this fight is probably going to be decided by one question. Can Guskov force chaos before Ankalaev creates order? Because that's the battle. Chaos versus control, explosion versus patience, instinct versus calculation. If the first 7 or 8 minutes are wild, Guskov's chances go way up. If Ankalaev slows the pace and starts controlling the distance and mixes in his wrestling and starts landing those straight left hands, now we're fighting his fight. And historically, that's where very few men survive. Now, the hidden battle that nobody is talking about. I don't hear enough analysts discussing cardio. Short notice fights aren't just about game plans. They're about conditioning. It's one thing to throw bombs for 5 minutes, but it's another thing to maintain that pace against someone who forces you to think every second. Mental fatigue is real. It creates physical fatigue. When you're constantly worried about takedowns and counters and body kicks, you burn energy even when you're standing still. That's why championship level fighters often look fresher in rounds 4 and 5. They're calmer. They're more efficient. They've learned not to waste movement. Ankalaev has lived in those deep waters before. Can Guskov do the same? That's one of the biggest unanswered questions heading into Saturday. Now we're getting to the heart of it right here. What happens if Ankalaev wins? And what happens if Guskov shocks the world? Because this isn't just about one fight. This could reshape the entire light heavyweight division, and someone's championship future changes forever. So what's really at stake for both men? What does this fight mean for Magomed Ankalaev. Sometimes winning isn't enough. Sometimes you have to dominate, and that's the position that Magomed finds himself in. This is a cruel part of being at the top of the mountain. Now, what does this fight mean for Magomed Ankalaev? Sometimes winning isn't enough. Sometimes you have to dominate, and that's the position Magomed Ankalaev finds himself in on Saturday night. This is the cruel part about being at the top of the mountain. Nobody remembers that you won. They remember how you won. And if Ankalaev goes out there and looks hesitant and gets dropped, needs a split decision, or struggles against a man who accepted a fight on less than 2 weeks' notice, oh, buddy, the conversation changes immediately. Not because he lost, but because perception changes. That's the burden of being one of the elite. Fans don't just expect victories. They expect statements. And the UFC doesn't build the biggest MMA promotion in the world around fighters who simply win. Nah. They built this around fighters who make people say, yo, did you see what he just did? Did you see that shit? That's what Ankalaev needs. He needs another victory, another reminder, a reminder that he's still one of the most complete fighters on the planet. A reminder that the road to the light heavyweight championship still runs through him. Because there are hungry contenders watching this fight, former champions, top 5 contenders. Every one of them is looking for a weakness. And if they see one, they'll spend the next 6 months building a game plan around it. Now, what are the dangers of looking past Guskov? Here's where every champion sometimes gets themselves in trouble. Not physically, mentally. It's human nature to spend months preparing for one opponent. Then suddenly, everything changes. A new style, a new rhythm, a new body type, a new mentality. Sometimes fighters convince themselves, this guy isn't supposed to beat me. And the moment you start believing that, you've already made your first mistake. Because the Octagon doesn't care what the rankings say. The cage locks the same way, whether you're fighting a number 1 contender or the number 15 contender. History has shown us over and over again, the moment you underestimate another professional fighter, you played yourself. You're playing with fire. So, what if Guskov pulls off the impossible? One punch can erase 10 years of climbing the rankings, and one upset can create a superstar overnight. Let's imagine it. Let's have a little fun. Let's imagine it. The crowd is stunned. Ankalaev is on the canvas. The referee jumps in. Bogdan Guskov has just knocked off one of the biggest names in the division. Now what? Everything changes. Yesterday, most casual fans barely knew his name. Today, he's being interviewed on every MMA show in the world. Every highlight reel starts with that finish. Every analyst wants to talk about him. Every contender suddenly has to take him seriously. That's how fast careers change in this sport. One performance, one opportunity, one unforgettable moment. The UFC has always rewarded fighters who seize the moment, not the ones who wait for it. This isn't just about one night. People think fights end when Bruce Buffer reads the scorecards. They don't. That's where the next story begins. If Ankalaev wins impressively, he's right back in the championship conversation. If Guskov shocks the world, wow, the entire light heavyweight division gets thrown into chaos. Matchups change, rankings change, future title plans change. This isn't just the main event, y'all. This is the fork in the road. Two careers walk into the octagon. Only one walks out with momentum. The other has to rebuild. And rebuilding at the highest level is one of the hardest things to do in combat sports. Now, this is something to talk about. One of these men has spent years protecting his position near the top. The other has spent his entire career chasing an opportunity exactly like this. Sometimes hunger beats comfort. Sometimes experience beats ambition. Saturday night, we're going to find out which one matters more. I mean, it's going to be an amazing fight, man. It's going to be really an amazing fight. So here's the prediction time. Who wins? How do they win? Can Bogdan Guskov write the greatest chapter of his career, or does Magomed Ankalaev remind everyone why he's one of the most feared light heavyweights in the world? Let's make the call. My official prediction. I'm about to make a prediction that might age beautifully, or have MMA Twitter roasting me before I finish my first cup of coffee on Sunday. And honestly, that's why we love this sport. Because unlike football, unlike basketball, there are no teammates to bail you out, no halftime adjustments, no timeouts. When that octagon door closes, it's just you, another human being, and 25 minutes to answer one question. Who's better? Who's better? Now, what my head tells me is that Magomed Ankalaev wins this fight. Not because Bogdan Guskov isn't dangerous. He absolutely is. Not because Guskov doesn't have knockout power. He absolutely does. But because over the course of 25 minutes, I trust Ankalaev's decision-making more than I trust Guskov's explosiveness. Championship-level MMA isn't usually won by the guy throwing the hardest punches. It's won by the fighter making the fewest mistakes. And that's exactly who Ankalaev has been throughout his career. He's disciplined, he's patient, technically sharp, defensively responsible. He doesn't get caught up chasing finishes. He creates them. What my gut says, but my gut keeps whispering something. Don't blink early. Because the most dangerous version of Bogdan Guskov is the version nobody expects. The first 5 minutes, those belong to Guskov. He's fresh, he's explosive, he's fearless. If he's going to pull off the upset, that's where it probably happens. A looping right hand, a counter left hook, a head kick nobody saw coming, something sudden, something violent, something that sends the arena into absolute chaos. That's the window Ankalaev has to survive. If he gets through that opening storm, I think the fight starts shifting dramatically. Now, here's where the fight turns. Watch Ankalaev's feet, his feet placement. Not just his hands, his feet. He rarely overcommits. He controls distance almost better than anyone in the division. He makes opponents reach, and the moment they reach, he counters. Then the wrestling starts becoming a factor. Then the body kicks, then the pressure. By the championship rounds, opponents aren't just fighting Ankalaev anymore. They're fighting fatigue. And fatigue makes cowards out of dangerous men. You can't got no win. You can't fight, man. So here's my official prediction. Magomed Ankalaev by the fourth TKO after systematically breaking Bogdan Guskov down. Not because Guskov lacks heart. Actually, I think Guskov earns a tremendous amount of respect in this fight. But I think he's going to have moments. I think he lands shots that make everyone in the building hold their breath. I think he reminds fans exactly why the UFC called him. But eventually, experience, fight IQ, and patience, and championship composure are going to take over. Now, I know, being a fighter myself, you never underestimate a man, especially a man with nothing to lose. But never forget what it takes to become one of the most feared fighters in the world. That's what makes this fight so fascinating. One man is trying to protect years of work, and the other is trying to change his life in one night. That's the beauty of mixed martial arts. Every walk to the octagon carries two dreams, but only one leaves alive. Not literally, career-wise, momentum-wise, legacy-wise. One man's future gets brighter. The other's gets a lot more difficult. And that's why every UFC main event matters. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Magomed Ankalaev proves he's still the man to beat at light heavyweight? Or does Bogdan Guskov shock the world and deliver one of the biggest upsets of the year? Drop your predictions in the comments and let's get this debate started. And if you enjoyed today's breakdown, make sure you like the video, please, and subscribe to Knuckle Game Podcast and turn on your notifications so you'll never miss a breakdown, prediction, or post-fight analysis. A big thanks to you and our sponsor, Juggernaut Provisions, the creator of the Knuckle Sandwich, built for fight fans who appreciate quality inside the cage. Until next time, I'm LBanger, and this has been Knuckle Game Podcast, where we don't chase headlines, we chase understanding. And remember, keep your hands up, your chin tucked,